For though the nations rage against you, O Jerusalem, know this, that the Lord your God is with you. For does not the prophet Isaiah say, no weapon formed against you shall prosper? So I say unto you, fear not, O Jerusalem. Fear not, Tel Aviv. Fear not, Haifa and Tiberias. Fear not, sons of David, for the Lord your God is with you. Formed against you shall prosper, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, thus saith the Lord. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, no weapon formed against you shall.
You're listening to No Weapon Formed Against You Shall Prosper by Joel Chernoff from the Restoration of Israel CD. You can find out more at www.lambmessianicmusic.com. In the same way I'm glad we have our Messianic brothers defending us in the military, I'm also glad that there aren't too many over there. We need our brothers and sisters to defend us abroad and, of course, preparing for that defense here at home in the very near future. There is a special work for them when that time comes. It takes a different type of soul to do their job. As with all of you, I want to stand up for them and honor them in every way possible. I have a very close friend who I met after his first tour in Iraq. His name is Tommy Robinson. Tommy, welcome to the program, brother.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, it's really good to have you on. I've really been looking forward to this. I understand you're home right now, but you're leaving tomorrow.
Yes.
Our interviews are a little bit time sensitive, but it doesn't really make a difference because of your experience over there. So we have two positions taking place here when meshed together, making a story that's interesting in its own right. Interviewing people in the military has become a common story in the media these days, and it's starting to play out its importance in some ways. But when we inject a messianic belief system preference into this paradigm, then we have a whole new world of interesting from my point of view. Give us a brief history of your becoming Messianic, and then we will apply that to the rest of the interview and how that works in your present lifestyle, Tommy.
Okay. I guess to go way back, we began with just my dad and mom, the way we were raised up. You know, I was raised in a Christian home, but my dad, when he became a believer just in Christianity, he always had questions about the not necessarily the Messianic side, but why he couldn't answer certain questions about his belief. So he kind of always taught us, he studied into the Jewish side of things and kind of always taught us, hey, this is what's right, but I'm not sure how to interject that. So I always knew underlying there was something different out there. How I became Messianic was it wasn't until after my first tour in Iraq. I did my first tour in Iraq just being another GI, just another military person. And after I came back, I'd gotten married before I left and had a kid with my ex-wife before I left. And I came in back and going and deploying and then coming back to a family poses a lot of complications. So we spent about a year and a half basically trying to get to know each other. And when that didn't work out, I was in a place in my life that I was lost. I was looking for something. I started going back to church where I grew up going to church, and for some reason things didn't line up. You know, I was tired of just going to the altar and asking for forgiveness and praying about something and not ever answering any of the questions I had deep down theologically about, you know, why we do things this way. And I knew history, you know, doesn't match up with some of the things I was taught growing up in church. And so I started looking into things, and then my dad had already started going to B'nai Shalom. So I went with him one night and really prayed about it and got a lot of answers that night and decided to start going to service there. And so that's how I really became Messianic. And it was right after my first tour in Iraq back in 2007. I'd gotten back in 2005 and 2007, beginning of that time, was when I first became Messianic.
All right. All right, good. Well, I believe you're on your second tour, but you're in Afghanistan this time, and it's been a while
Correct.
since you were there the first time. Tell us what happened on the first tour, and then bring us up to date with where you are now, including the job you do over there.
Okay. Well, I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, and that was back in 97 to 2001, and then I got out right before 9/11 happened and joined the National Guard because I kind of missed the military. It was a structure that I'd had since I was 17, so stayed in the military just on the National Guard side. So my first tour in Iraq, it was just a military thing. It was active duty. It was nice. I was doing my job that I changed to was air traffic control, and that's what I currently do now. And that's what I did in Afghanistan. We're in the middle of Iraq doing providing air traffic control services at an airport there. Some questions started arising there in my beliefs a little bit, which is what I think led me to the Messianic lifestyle. Was they are really, really devout people, the Muslims. They stay really focused on being kind. They're really kind people, and they emphasize that. Now, I'm not talking about, necessarily the extremists of the group, but I'm talking about the locals that aren't necessarily your everyday, Taliban or whatever. So I started having questions on historically where they got their beliefs from, and I, understood it from the Bible that they're descendants of Abraham as well, just, on the other side. And so that was my first tour in Iraq, started questions. I broke my foot while I was over there. I came back. That added additional stresses on my previous marriage, and ended up having a surgery on my foot in 2007. And that brought me up to that place. This time it's been like you said, it's been a while since I was there. Afghanistan's completely different. My perspective on how they fit into the role as far as the coming of the end times and stuff like that is different. Some of the people, my mentality is kindness and open as much as I can. I'm not really doing anything on the front lines as far as being out there running around with them. I try not to be hateful or have any hatred to them, because I think maybe some of them being as close and understanding to the disciplines and beliefs that they could be, there's been also stories of people converting, from Muslim to Messianic or whatever. So I don't really have a lot of discontent or anything any different than the first tour, but anytime I'm approached with it, having my understanding of it, I usually I keep the most of the religious conversation out of it.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times it just adds difficulty to the conversation.
Sure.
We just deal with living our lifestyles as we do, and they do understand that a lot of them do understand that I follow that. A couple of people that I've become friends with now in Afghanistan that are local nationals that come around on base and stuff like that, they understand that I eat kosher, which is halal to them.
Right.
They understand that, so they know in their mind, but we just don't, really go deep into the discussion of it. I mean, I was actually shocked. I actually had a hernia surgery, and I was down in Qatar, and I was watching. They had a channel on the TV down there that actually sits there and they read the Quran and put it in English as they're reading it. And I was actually, shocked to see some of the stuff that they put in there. I mean, they actually are against anybody that stands by Israel, or anybody that believes that way,
right.
But most of the people I've come in contact with, we just kind of are, civil with each other.
Sure.
And maybe the fact that the military presence itself. You know, the fact that I'm carrying a gun around, you're not going to get in too big of an argument, and the language barrier itself. You know.
Sure.
But for the most part, understanding it is the understanding I've come to is that with the times that we're coming into now, the biggest thing is I feel like it's time for me to move out of the military, and it doesn't make any sense to anyone from the military perspective, because I'll have 14 years in at the end of this deployment, you know, and everybody thinks, oh, retirement, man, you're only 6 years away, you know, and you get this big fat retirement, and the military take care of you for the rest of your life. Well, from our perspective, we know that might not be the case. It's not something I want to rely on. And with the family and it being hard to be away from my family now, we're just not going to put them through that again.
Sure.
So this will be the last time for sure.
Okay. Yeah, and I understand you're heading out tomorrow to go back over.
Yes, I got about 5.5, 6 months left. We should be done over there, and get our relief should come in July or August sometime, and we'll be on our way back. Okay. And it's a National Guard unit. We'll come back and wash all of our stuff and turn it all in, and I'll turn mine in for good.
Well,
and go to the house.
I believe there's a story about your identification concerning dog tags. What was that about?
Yeah, that was just this year. On the deployment was the first chance I'd been able to get my dog tags updated, because they always just said no. What did I have? Non-denominational is what I had on my dog tags for a long time, and years ago, years as in like 4 years ago, when I got back from Iraq and I tried to talk to the Guard unit, I started doing the Messianic thing. And so on drill weekends, I told them, well, they would cater meals to us. And it started with, well, I'm not going to eat pork. And there were several times they'd order rib crib or whatever, and that'd be the only option, so I would go without. It was the beginning of it's been one of my biggest battles, but it was the beginning of my Messianic, learning. I was just learning. I was just new, and that was the one thing I could, grab a hold of, and I knew I could do that. And at first that was an issue, and we got a new supply person, and I spoke with her. She was the one in charge of ordering the meals, told her it was my belief, no problem, changed it. And they started ordering stuff where we could have both. She would make sure that there was another course of some sort that they would bring, that I could have something that would be kosher chicken or whatever. But every time I went to the admin office and said, hey, I would like to change my religious preference, and I would say Messianic, and they say, well, there isn't a Messianic. We don't have that. You can put Jewish on there if you want. And coming along with that change anyways, it's automatically, and I deal with this a lot, it's the anti-Semitism in the military, in society in itself, but even in the military, because they all watch South Park shows and different shows like that, and they just, you're all Jews.
Yeah.
That's the way they see it. And I just now getting to a place with a few of my peers that I've explained it enough times, and Monty's taught me, instead of, arguing, to ask them questions, And so I've asked a lot of questions, and they get to thinking about the answers and how they feel about things. But I've actually got a few of my peers, coming around to that. But so for the longest time, they weren't going to change the dog tags. And so it was just this time, right before we mobilized, and we were in the ID office, and it wasn't with anybody from my unit or anything like that. It was just a guy in there that was doing the dog tags, and they said, what do you want to put on there? Because you need some new sets of dog tags. You have to get new dog tags before you deploy. They got to make sure you have so many sets. And I told him I wanted a Messianic, and the person there was actually like, don't know what that is. And so I just said, type this on there, and I wrote it out. And they went ahead and did it. Oh, the unit's none the wiser, They didn't matter to them either way, and once it was done, it was done. But she's like, we can type in whatever you want, because they can put in whatever they want. And the funny part of it is we had another guy who's, country, he's from the country, and he wanted to change his to hillbilly, and they wouldn't let him do it. They finally came around to doing mine, and he actually made the argument that I got to change mine to something that they didn't think existed. You know what I'm saying? Something they were saying, oh, that doesn't exist, I'm going to change mine to hillbilly. So I do get a lot of that from my peers, and
Sure.
from the leadership, not so much anymore. You know,
Good.
they've got on with it, because there is a couple of Jewish rabbis that are in the military that are serving as like chaplains, and there's a rumor that there is a Messianic one. I haven't been able to find them, but they have started to. They in the military they're supposed to be politically correct in all areas and be open to all lifestyles, and pretty much if you're willing to go and sign up and serve, they're going to accept you.
Sure.
On the leadership level,
Sure.
you know, especially with the way things are now. You know, they need people, and a
Right.
lot of people, with the way society's going now, are not willing. You know,
Right.
like they were back in the days. Everybody just signed up. You know, so
Yeah.
that has been.
That's good.
That's one of the biggest struggles is about that. But that was the dog tag thing.
That's
and
good.
It's settled now.
Any doubt in your mind at all that God is good?
Oh no,
No.
definitely not. He makes a way. He makes a way for it to work out.
How incredible. That's a great story, brother. Well, my next question, which you really kind of answer as we go along, it's really good, is what are the positive and negatives about your lifestyle as a Messianic having to do with people you serve with and the country you're in? You kind of have said a few things, but anything else you can add to that?
Yeah, the positives is I'm definitely different. You know, I'm definitely set apart, and it has its advantages. I haven't got them to say I can have the whole day off in a combat zone, you know, for Sabbath, you know, from evening to evening,
Wow.
which would be nice.
Wow.
It would be have a day off.
Yeah.
So they don't really cater to that. I mean, we all gotta,
Yeah.
you know, if it's time to pick up your gun and go, you gotta go,
Right.
and we all have to work together. So that's one of the things I just deal with. And the only negatives is stuff that the more I've grown and the more I've learned and studied, and learned from, like I said, about Monty teaching me to ask questions instead of arguing back and forth,
Right.
or trying to prove a point. Ask them a question about, you know, for example, they always try to. It's almost always about what I eat. They almost
Sure.
always want to joke with you
Sure.
around breakfast time when it's time for them to all go get food, and I say, make sure I don't have any bacon. Make sure you give me something different.
Right.
You know, I don't want that in my food. You know, and it always comes up around that time, and you kind of get razzed a little bit. Oh yeah, that's right, you're a Jew. You know, it's almost always pretty much that's the tone of it. But I've learned to go. You know, I've learned to ask the questions, you know, and I've actually got a couple of people that are just almost right there. You know, they're listening, they're studying. One of my close friends just asked me if he could use one of the teachings that I had, and I gave him the Heritage of Abraham,
Good.
and he listened to that, and he's thinking about it, and he's talking about it, and he's asking me questions a lot. But I usually pose it as a question. Well, do you believe in God? You know, let's start there. And they'll say, oh, yeah, we believe in God. I grew up in church or whatever my whole life. Well, do you believe that God made everything that's on the earth? Well, yeah. Well, do you believe that if he made everything, he knows what's good for you and what's not good for you? Well, yeah. Well, let me show you this right here. If God said not to eat this because he made it to clean up the dirt, you know, then it's probably not good for you, right? They just change. Oh, well, I don't know. And then they go, I'm going to have to, one of my friends, the one that said he wanted to put hillbilly on his dog tags, you're going to make me get my Bible out. I'm going to have to go look that up.
Oh, you're going to make
And
him
now
get
we're
his
getting
Bible
somewhere.
out. That's good.
Yeah. And now you're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
been
good.
a great opportunity, this especially being deployed, because you get really close with the people you serve
Sure.
with. I mean, you become really close with them. Especially this deployment. It's been, I think, God wanted me to go on this one more time. I mean, it's been a sacrifice and it's been a struggle to be away. But I really believe that he has a purpose for me here.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know? And my wife, Farrah, and I talk about it all the time. It's not just for, you may not change anybody right now. You know what I'm saying? Don't get discouraged if somebody doesn't jump
That's
right
right.
on it right now and go, I'm on your road. But they're going to remember the words
They
they
are.
heard, you know?
They
And
are.
if the Spirit, it's not my place to draw them in. The Spirit's going to draw them in,
Good,
you know?
good.
But they're going to hear that word, and it's going to be in their mind when the time comes. And I pray, you know, like I always think about, I pray it's not too late. I want to do my part to witness to as many people as I can, especially in the military. The vision that I had a couple of years ago, and I prayed about it before I went on this deployment with Ephraim and several people from service, I know I got everybody praying for me, is I would hate to be put on that side where the military says, okay, your mission here has changed and it's time to go over here and we're drawing lines with Israel.
Right.
And we're going to defend a Palestinian state or a border, and me have to make a decision,
Sure.
that would basically be, treason against my country if I lay down my weapon and surrender to,
Right. Right.
to the IDF. So, I pray that people understand that and get that grasp. And I got a lot of close friends in the military that I think will remember that crazy guy, Tommy, who was just another Jew. And there are several other Jewish people that feel the same way, similarly in the military, that feel like if it went against Israel, if any time it went against Israel, they would immediately be done, Now they're not on necessarily with the Messianic thing all the way, but it's the same loyalties, and they kind of understand that. Some of the ones that are, really devout, if they were ever asked to stand up against Israel, it would be a decision they would make.
That's great. It's really good, brother. I'd like to introduce to all my listeners the new Messianic evangelist, Tommy Robinson. I think
we've not quite an evangelist.
I think we've lined out your purpose when you get back, brother. No.
Oh, definitely.
You and I have both been taught many things concerning Islam, probably more than the other soldiers you've served with. Has what you know about Islam affected your view of Afghanistan?
I would say yes, but mostly not so much. I kind of already had the views of radical Islam,
right?
And it's maybe something that some of the people don't understand. Radical Islam versus just someone who's Islamic. I think, and I still don't believe that Islam is right. I'm not in any way, condoning Islam itself or the Quran or anything. But most of the peaceful people, and Afghanistan is a very, very poor country. It's not many of the locals. It's not a whole lot of the locals that we're fighting against over there. It's mostly people from the other countries, from Syria and Iran and all those, that have come to the front of the war. Wherever the U.S. says they're going to go to fight terrorism, they're going to send their fighters there. Most of the people that I've come into contact with, and, you try not to be deceived to the point that you let them into your house maybe, but most of the people I've come into contact with are, poor people, and this is an opportunity for them to make money, so they get onto the base and they're selling their things. They're selling stuff that they can make and things like that. So I haven't really had a problem with the people necessarily there in Afghanistan. And the same, I believe, is true for Iraq. There are people there that live there and live a peaceful lifestyle and would like to live a peaceful lifestyle that don't buy into all the hate everybody. And I could be deceived as to how few that group is, but the ones that are radical, without a doubt, I don't think my change in being Messianic has actually changed me a lot. Back in the day, I think after 9/11, just like many people and any other time, I was really there, and I was like, yeah, I'll take the first shot. You tell me who to shoot, and I'll shoot them. I was against the whole thing. But becoming Messianic has changed me to the point that, like I said, I don't think the military's where I'm supposed to be anymore. If I could win this whole thing with kindness and sit down and get our leadership to understand that there's a purpose for these people and something's going to happen no matter what we do, and that spinning your wheels against these people is not going to change the end times, But they don't even see necessarily the end times as what we are seeing it as,
Sure.
Most of the world, like Monty says a lot of times, is they're not going to admit it. It's going to be too hard for them to change away from their traditions. One of my most fearful scriptures and my favorite scripture at the same time is out of Matthew 7 that I think of all the time. Many, and in some translations people say most, in that day will cry out, Lord, Lord, didn't we do all these great things in your name? You know, didn't we stand up for you? Didn't we said, in God we trust. We believed in you, and we did all these things, and we helped people, and we did great things. And he's not going to know us because we're not Torah observant, keepers of law, you know, doers of lawlessness, Torahless, you know.
Right.
So I've changed. I mean, I've changed a lot. Islam is not, you know, my belief. It's not something I support. But the kindness thing has been big, and I want to, you know, I want to be kind to everyone, and I don't want to be the one out there in the front making the decisions or doing all the fighting.
Sure.
You know, I want to be in the right place. I want to be serving people and doing the right thing when the time comes to go into the wilderness, or, you know,
right,
whatever the next step God has for us.
What do you find the other men and women that you stand alongside of every day, what do you find in their understanding of what Islam is in difference than yours? How does that relationship work?
Most of the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis, there are a few that just want to make the money here and come back and go to college, and then the ones, I guess the majority of the ones that are there that, you know, all of us believe in freedom and defending other people against terrorism. That's what we all feel we're there to do. These people that we see on a daily basis that are poor will do whatever the person with a gun to their head at the time tells them to do. You know, if it's Taliban in my front yard, guess what? I'm doing what Taliban tells me to do.
Wow.
Now the next day when the U.S. knocks on my front door, I'm going to do what the people with guns are the ones that, you know, is afraid of it. So I think it's more simplistic. I don't think they understand how this plays into the effect on Israel. I don't think most people see it. Like, we get the updates every week and we really listen, and a lot of people will really pay close attention to the newspaper. Sometimes, I mean, since I've been home, I notice you look on the third or fourth page in the newspaper and you find one small article about something going on in Israel. You know, most people, you know, they're just oblivious. You know, their eyes are not being open to it at the time, that how this affects the big picture,
right?
You know, and prophecy.
That's good.
So most of the people that I work alongside just see it as, yeah, they believe in this extreme religion, and they just want to kill everybody that doesn't believe the same way they do, and we're here to get rid of them, the ones that are extreme.
Sure.
You know? So I don't know if it goes down to the level of religious beliefs to that extreme. Now, I do try to share that with some of the people when we talk about it. You know, there are people that ask me, you know, how I feel about it. And so when I do explain to them that this is one of the sons of Abraham, and it's always going to be an issue, and this is what is, I believe, is going to happen in the end times, and this is how they play a role into that. And these people will be that way, and it does play into the bigger picture than what we see right here on a day-to-day basis. And some of them write it off and say, well, no, I'm just here to, you know, make airplanes land and make airplanes take off and send helicopters out to do this and do that. So I think it's, you keep a more simple mindset, you know, and especially people that are going out the gate. A few friends of mine that go out the gate every day and do convoys, most of the time they don't think that deep into it, you know. They got to go out, do what they're told to do, and come back alive so they can go home, you know, so we can all go home to their families.
That's good. Well, as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing, you know, we that are not in your position over there, obviously we really don't have a clue. I've never been there. I was in the Navy, and you know, during peace times and that type of thing. And even here, every day we're on the front lines of our physical world that we have to deal with, and also the spiritual world. But with you, you're kind of on two front lines over there also. You're on a front line where you could be attacked at any time. Physically, it's even heavier, of course, than what we're going through. Plus also a heavier spiritual front line also.
Definitely.
That's good. It's really good. It's really good to hear these things that you're saying. It's very, very interesting. Now, what about on the Islamic side? Does that knowledge of Islam affect your relationship with anyone that you've met on the Islamic side? I guess what I'm saying is, have you had a chance to get to know some of the locals, and does your understanding of Islam and the distinct difference between Messianic play into that relationship?
There's only a few that I come into contact with on a day-to-day basis. I did do one mission outside the gate, and most of the people we met were children, and so it doesn't really. They're used to us being there. I mean, we've been over there for like 9 or 10 years now, so they come up and you want to be kind to them, and we're just nice to them, give them candy and
Sure.
ink pens, and that makes their day. The older people that I've come into contact with that come to like the bazaar and sell, little trinkets or rugs or, knickknacks and things that, people like to collect or bring home. The older ones, they don't really talk too much to us. Maybe they have, I don't know if they think that we're all different. They pretty much classify us all the same. The only people that I would say I have any impact on would be like some of the people that work in the chow hall that have noticed, and it goes again to the eating thing. They have taken note of the way I eat, because they're all watching us.
Sure.
They're all observant. But I haven't gotten to any type of relationship,
Okay.
a personal relationship with any of them to the extreme that it has, really an effect on it. As far as the other people the other peacekeepers and stuff that I work with, besides our military, the Australians and the Dutch and the Slovaks, and a lot of times, other than the Australians, the language barrier has kept us from having any, in-depth conversations to that extreme. So, my knowledge of it really is affecting me, and then there's a few fellow, soldiers that we have discussions and have kind of little meetings, I would say, semi-type Bible studies when they want to have a question or something like that. And we sometimes sit and discuss things.
That's good.
But that's about as far as it goes on that.
Well, that's good. Well, this has been incredibly great information, brother. I tell you, anytime that we can check back with you while you're over there, I've got your information. We're going to make sure that from time to time we check in with you when you're available and get some updates. How's that sound?
For sure.
All right.
Anytime.
Well, please know that there are countless numbers of us praying for you, praying for your family here in the States, and safety for all of you, including your family in the States, brother. The Lord
Amen.
richly bless you, my friend. We love you, Tommy, and we're so glad that you're here safe and that you will come back safe next time, too.
Amen. Amen. Well, I will see you or hear from you soon then, and I will be back for good before the end of the year. And I look forward to going to Sukkot.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, shalom, brother. Stay safe.
Shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Don't go away, your show will start after a brief pause.